We're going to be talking in this video about self-regulation and the two main means in which we self-regulate, the two kind of broad categories. So first of all, self-regulation is the ability to manage or kind of regulate your thoughts, feelings and behaviours so that they line up with more your longer term goals and expectations and also your values. So let's say that one of your values is having a physically healthy body, then self-regulation is kind of managing your thoughts and feelings so that your behaviours line up in a way that you can achieve that physically healthy body. So if you would just take a moment for me to think of the last time that you felt a little bit overwhelmed by a feeling or an emotion. So you might have received a message from someone, or someone might have said something to you, and you might have felt for a moment kind of overwhelmed and a little bit out of control. And then if you think back to how you first reacted to that, and then think back to maybe how you view that situation now, so hopefully you haven't picked something that's happened 5 minutes ago, but if you look at the difference between the two, your very first response was most likely your bottom-up response. It might have been, going to grab some chocolate or some wine, or maybe going for a run. And your second response is your top-down response, and that might have been talking to someone about it and thinking about, if it was a message received, something that they could have meant instead of the way you interpreted it. So your bottom-up response is very much the kind of first thing that happens that we don't have to think about, is kind of ingrained within us. And the second response, the top-down response, is something that takes a little bit of time and energy for us to reach. So examples of top-down responses are when we can reappraise a situation, we can think about it in a different way, or we might reframe it, which is a similar thing. And examples of bottom-up responses, as I said before, some people might turn to something that comforts them or go into a habit that is very strong for them, such as turning to Instagram or social media. And within yoga, we are able to use both of these things to regulate our emotions, although anything that is new is top-down. So if you're new to yoga and yoga practices, it will all feel quite top-down because it requires energy for us to think about what we're doing. So one of the reasons that in my practices and in a lot of yoga practices, there's a lot of repetition is because we want to turn some of these top-down practices into bottom-up practices. And what that does is that the next time we're feeling overwhelmed by an emotion, or even if we're just feeling a little bit out of sorts, we don't have to think so much about ways to self-regulate, ways to maybe calm ourselves down. But we have that kind of ingrained within our bottom-up processes, our bottom-up resources. So that's just a small explanation of why there's lots of repetition in yoga. Eventually, the goal is to get yourself to a place where if you feel suddenly overwhelmed by an emotion, or if you're feeling down or anxious or out of sorts, then you don't have to, in that moment, think about what am I going to do? How am I going to make myself feel better? But you've cultivated and created these habits and practices in the times that you're feeling better, so that they've become bottom-up practices. They've become strong practices that you don't have to think about too much. So that's why we'll continue to work on repetition and consistency in our yoga practices, at least in any yoga practice that you do with me. And we'll talk some more about top-down practices within yoga in a next video. Thanks for watching.